Last week was Anti-Poverty Week. The research released by non-government organisations during that week stands in stark contrast to the Monday's State of the States report from ComSec, which has been received as positive news for the New South Wales Government. Based on the 8 economic indicators ComSec measures, New South Wales ranks first in the country, but those indicators don't come close to telling the complete story about how we're progressing as a society. The poverty snapshots released by ACOS and NCOS reveal the grave problems that remain within our communities. Almost 900,000 people in New South Wales, 14.6% of our population, are living in poverty. Another 7% of the population are near or at risk of poverty. Any pride taken in a surge in housing construction or retail spending should be tempered by the fact that more than one person out of every 5 in this state are living below or close to the poverty line. It should lead us to question just what we want to be number one in. How do we measure how well our community is faring in New South Wales, and how do we measure the experience of the most vulnerable in our society? How do we assess whether the policies and expenditure of the government are achieving the goal of improving the lives of our citizens, and particularly supporting the well-being of the most vulnerable and disadvantaged in this state? A Productivity Commission staff working paper by Rosalie McLaughlin, Jeff Gilfillan and Jenny Gordon from July 2013, titled Deep and Persistent Disadvantage in Australia, identified that Australia has experienced 2 decades of economic growth and rising average incomes, but some in the community continue to be left behind. Disadvantage is a multidimensional concept. It's about impoverished lives, including a lack of opportunities, not just low income. Poverty, deprivation, capabilities and social exclusion are different lenses to view and measure disadvantage. People who are more likely to experience deep and persistent disadvantage include lone parents, Indigenous Australians, people with a long-term health condition or disability, and people with low educational attainment. Many are public housing tenants and are weakly attached to the labour market. I've given notice that I will introduce in this place a private member's bill to establish a framework for developing, measuring and reporting on wellbeing indicators. I do so because the Greens believe that public policy and economic development must be about improving the lives of people and assuring the well-being of future generations. In her speech to the National Press Club in September 2012, Christine Milne addressed the question of how we build an economic system that serves the people and nature, both for today and tomorrow. She made the case that we have to limit our use of GDP to those purposes it is suited, and to measure our true progress as a nation with different tools. Our view of what progress means must be broader and have a more long-term focus than any set of quarterly economic indicators can deliver. As Senator Milne said in her address, the Greens want to see growth in quality of life, growth in equality of society, and growth that plans for the long term. The real measure of government's performance are to be found in the quality of life that each and every citizen in this state experiences. This is determined not just by the level of income and the cost of living, but by the capacity of the state and our society to meet their needs for housing, health, education, psychological well-being, cultural diversity, community vitality and engagement. And our concept of how we are performing must include the quality of life of the most vulnerable and disadvantaged. But this has to be about more than measurement. Indicators of well-being will be a starting point, and the government is already accumulating a great deal of data that can serve the purpose. It must be accompanied by a fundamental shift in how we think about how we work in this place and how those in government approach their role as legislators and policymakers. It's only once we make the well-being of people and communities our fundamental objective across the whole of government that we will know whether the decisions of the government and this parliament are truly serving the people of New South Wales.
Madam Deputy President.